So before I introduce the first speaker, I'm just going to do a quick little bit of housekeeping. So the event will be recorded today. So if you do not wish to be in the recording, you'll just need to switch off your cameras and mute your mics. And also, if you can mute your mics as well when people are presenting, that will also be great. And with each presentation, there'll also be the opportunity for questions at the end. So we just ask if you can use the Q&A box at the top, which is next to the chat function, and the speakers will answer your questions at the end of their presentations. So yes, I'll just introduce the first speaker. So we've got Mitu Norris from the Government Operational Research, who will be supported by her colleague Charlotte. So yes, welcome Mitu.
Hello. Let me just share my slides. I'm Mitu Norris and I run the Central Management Unit for the Government Operational Research Service. My colleague Charlotte Powell works in His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, so HMRC, and she'll be giving a little bit of an overview in a bit as well. So what we're going to cover, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what is GORS. So we are the Government Operational Research Service. There are a couple of ways to join government operation research. So I'll tell you how to join. I'll touch a little bit on some of the project work that we've done. And then I'm going to hand over to Charlotte, who's going to tell you what it's like working in GORS, because I'm no longer, since I've moved to this central role, I don't actually work as an analyst anymore, but I am an analyst by trade. I used to work at the education department. As Emma said, you can obviously write into the chat, but if you don't mind unmuting, by all means, as I go through, just ask questions as well, because I can't read the chat while I'm sharing my slides. So what is GORS? Yeah, we're government-wide specialist analytical group. So we work for central government. A lot of the work is policy making. What we do is there are various professions, and we're one of the analytical professions. You've probably heard of statistician, the economics profession, social research, and operational research. They're the traditional four analytical ones, and GORS was set up to champion OR across government. We are spread over 30 plus departments and agencies. We definitely have a large presence in many of the larger departments, such as HMRC, education, DWP, energy and net zero. Their home office, obviously, big analytical presence, and we're growing all the time. So a few years ago, when I first took over, we had less than 1,000 people, but now we've got 15, just over 1,500 staff, spread, I would say, across Great Britain, really. We are spread across Hastings right through to Edinburgh and Cardiff. So we have the Office for National Statistics in Newport and Cardiff, and the Scottish Government are also members of the OR Society, of GORS rather. So we used to have a presence in Northern Ireland, but actually the Belfast office no longer has any analysts in there, unfortunately. But in terms of, if you want to talk about levelling up, I'd say we were levelling up before levelling up became a department, so which is a good thing. And just over half our staff in London, which is probably what you'd expect, given the fact that Parliament is based in Westminster, so all our ministers have to go and vote there. So they all have an office within walking distance, really, of Westminster. Yeah, our aim, obviously, to maximise the benefits and use OR skills in the designing, implementation, and evaluation of policies. The way I see it is, the way to look at it, I suppose, is we're the analysts and the policy colleagues are two sides of the same coin. We need to provide evidence-based policy making. That is the rubric of government, really. So without the analysis shoring up the policy making, you can't have one without the other. And yeah, that's what our analysts do. Our analysts have worked on lots, you know, generally everything that sort of helps to run the wheels of you know, of society. There'll be something, some of our analytical work that will have fed into it. I say I used to work in the Department for Education. One of the things that I worked on, which eventually was brought in by a previous Prime Minister, Theresa May, was the new funding formula to fund schools throughout England. So that took, you know, several iterations, as you can imagine, and several years. But it was, you know, Gore's analysts that helped bring that over the finish line, in a sense. And that's sort of policy making that has then been implemented in terms of legislation. So how to join Gore's? We have two routes. There's a mainstream recruitment route and a fast stream. I'll just take you through both of them sort of briefly. By all means, ask questions as we go along. The mainstream route, it's an external recruitment round. We always advertise on civil service jobs. So if you are registered on civil service jobs and you put an alert for either OR, analysis, stats, any of those things, you should get our advert. We recruit at two levels, so at high HEO, which is higher executive officer, and senior executive officer level. Our entry grade is HEO. You know, depending on your experience, it will depend on which grade you pass at the interview. In terms of recruitment, we have a spring recruitment round and an autumn recruitment round usually, and the adverts go live March and September, and they're usually open for about 5 weeks. I am the point of contact for it, so you know, if you have any questions, please, you know, do ask. And in terms of interviews, we usually have interviews late June, July time, and late November, early December time, so that we can sort of, you know, should you be successful in your interview, you will be allocated to a department just before the summer holidays and just before the Christmas break. Obviously, with all these things, you know, please remember they're either route. All job offers are provisional until you clear security. We do, you know, we all work for central government, so there is a security clearance process involved. So what I'd say is, you know, if you apply and you're successful, if you've already got another job or you're doing something, you know, don't hand in your notice until you've cleared security, because that does take a number of months. The other route that we have is the fast stream. We're one of 15 schemes that make up the government fast stream. The fast stream is also an external recruitment process, but it's overseen by the civil service fast stream, which run out of the Cabinet Office. There is only one round of recruitment for the fast stream. That's every autumn. The adverts go live in October. Again, they're usually open for 4 to 5 weeks. And the fast stream is a bit different to the mainstream, because whereas the mainstream, you sit an interview, and at the end of the interview, you find out if you've been successful or not. The fast stream is called a fast stream assessment centre for a reason, because we test you in a number of ways, and I'll come on to that. But usually our interviews for the fast stream take place around February, March time, and yeah, okay. So just to tell you a little bit about the mainstream recruitment itself. Once you apply, you know, should you be successful in the SIFT, then you'll be invited for interview. And it's only at the interview point that candidates can pass it either at the HEO or SEO level. In terms of passing the SIFT, we're just making sure that you meet our minimum requirements, both in terms of qualification and what we're looking for in terms of the evidence. The interview process, it is approximately an hour interview. We have just one interview, and it comprises 2 elements. There is a problem structuring test, which is an exercise to see whether you know, how you think on your feet, really. So you have 45 minutes before the interview starts to prepare a 5-minute oral presentation. You'll be given a choice of 3 questions, and you just choose one of them. So once you are in the interview itself, it starts with the presentation, and then we ask you some follow-up questions on the presentation. And then the second half of the interview focuses on what you've written on your application form in terms of your, you know, in terms of the evidence that you've provided, in terms of your analytical ability. You know, we also ask like how you work together, and things like that. If you want to know more about what we're looking for at the various grades, we have a technical framework which can be found on the GORS website. I will I think Emma will circulate these slides later on. So if you click on that link, it'll take you through to the website, and there's a technical framework, and that'll tell you the sort of things that we're looking for, you know, at each grade, so that, you know, you can see, you know, which you I suppose which role you fit more under. Any questions on the mainstream? Are there any questions at all? No. I'm just, in which case I will go on. So the fast stream, is, as I say, is more of an assessment centre. It's not, these are all virtual, but it's still a virtual assessment centre. And joining the fast stream, the GORS fast stream, there's many steps to it. But firstly, you have to pass the fast stream assessment centre, which is the generalist. All fast streamers that apply have to pass the fast stream assessment centre, which is called the FSAC. If you pass the FSAC, you will then be asked which of the 15 schemes, you know, you want to be chosen for. You get a choice of 4 schemes that you can opt in to be, you know, to be selected, and if OR is one of your choices, then you will come to our assessment centre. In terms of the 4 choices, depending on where we are on your 4 choices, you know, you will see each of the schemes in the order that you've put them in. So if you put us first, you'll come to us first, and if you know, and only if you don't pass, you will move on to scheme 2 and scheme 3. That's the way it works. It's like a they delineate it in order. As I said, the fast stream assessment is harder than the mainstream, just because there are more stages to it. So if you want to join the fast stream, because we are looking for, it's an accelerated leadership program going up to team leader. So because of that, the nature of the scheme, we are looking to see, you know, to test you in more ways than if you join the mainstream. So the ORAT comprises 2 written tests. So you'll do an analytical exercise and a problem structuring test. Those tests are usually done a couple of days before the interview part of it. We do it in that order so that, you know, you can separate the written from the interview part. Once you've done the analytical exercises, yeah, the other bit that we do is an interview. So the first half of the interview is will be taken up by a technical, what we call a technical presentation. So once you're invited to interview, you will have to choose one of 4 analytical techniques, one of 4 analytical techniques to undertake sort of approximately 10 hours worth of reading and study. So you need to, you know, you'll be given a choice of 4. You only need to choose one of them, but you need to do some studying around it so you know how it works. On the day of your interview, you'll be, similar to the PST exercise, you'll be sent a choice of questions for your technical presentation, and you will need to choose one of the questions and apply that analytical technique that you've done some study on to answer that question. Again, this is an oral presentation, so you will have prep time before the interview, and then the first part of the interview is taken up with the presentation. It's a 5-minute oral presentation with some follow-up questions, and then again, similar to the mainstream interview, you know, what we focus on, the second half of the interview focuses on your analytical background and your motivations for joining GORS, so things that you've put on your application form. So that's sort of, the interview structure is similar. This is to give you an idea of what the fast stream entails. As I said, it's an accelerated leadership program. So if you join the fast stream, if you're successful and you join the GAWS fast stream, it is a 3-year program. In each of the 3 years, you will do a placement in a different department. So you'll have, within that 3-year program, you'll have had a rotation in 3 different departments to gain experience. Once you've completed the second year, there is a midpoint assessment, and once you've completed all 3 years, so our scheme is sort of 3.5 years, because the end of scheme assessment, the ESA, isn't done until you've completed all 3 years. Throughout this program, not only do you, I suppose the way to look at it is it's a bit like an apprenticeship. So if you're on the fast stream, it's not, it's not an exact science, but you should be doing 80% of your time is doing the job and the role in the department that you've, the analytical role that you've been given in departments A, B, and C. But the other 20% is for your learning and development. So you will have both core curriculum things, which every fast streamer has to do regardless of which scheme they're on, and then you will have profession specific, which is specific to the GAWS profession, and you do those in that time. There is plenty of time to do all of this. They're all spread across the 3 years, so don't worry in terms of what it is that you will be asked to do. There is plenty of time to fit all of this in. We try and do this profession specific stuff so that it doesn't clash with the core curriculum things, and you'll be booked onto courses that you need to attend. Okay. Are there any questions on any of the routes to join GAWS at all? Just to give you an idea of some of the project work, I hope you've all, heard of COVID. I suppose I'm using COVID as the example is because that was the one, in recent times where, we work collaboratively across departments, but this particular incident meant that we worked collaboratively across several departments, and it was government wide, in order to deliver things like the lateral flow testing in schools and things to do with international travel policy. There are many departments that those sorts of things affect. The lateral flow testing, just to give an example, it would be education, there was health, there was also a lot, in fairness, the army got involved, so there was MOD. I think what it showed, although we are multidisciplinary, but when we worked on these projects, it showed how well we worked across the piece to try and deliver. And and if you remember, that sort of time was against us, so we were doing this as quickly as possible to try and on the information that we'd got, and the information was changing daily. So all of those, daily briefings that you heard the Prime Minister giving at the time, Office of National Statistics, ONS, were giving those briefings every day, and it was GAWS analysts that were working on the details for that. So I feel that was one point where we worked to extremely tight deadlines, and we collaborated really well. And I think and it shows where analysis really had an impact in many areas. That's yeah. So let me just stop sharing my screen here. I'm now going to hand over to Charlotte, who is one of our analysts who work Charlotte works in HMRC, so she's going to give you a little bit of an insight of what it's like, a day in the life of an analyst, I guess. So Charlotte, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Meteor. Hi everyone. Yeah, as Meteor says, my name is Charlotte. I'm currently based in HMRC, but I'll kind of give a little overview of how I kind of got into GORS and the different roles that I've been in. I'll try and not ramble too much. But I joined GORS as a placement student in 2018. So this is something that GORS offer where you can do kind of like a year out from university and go and work in one of the departments. So they can kind of place you wherever there's GORS people, and it's kind of based on location. So I put London as my top choice, and I got placed at Home Office. What Mitty was saying about the problem structuring test, about studying up on your techniques, very important. I just want to emphasize. I went into that interview. It was probably the first real job interview I've done in my life. And during the problem structuring test, I was like name dropping techniques, and then at one point in the interview they were like, oh, you mentioned this. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were like, can you tell us what this means? And I was like, I just must have gone as like white as a ghost. I was just like, I'm not sure, which wasn't great, but I did get the job, but I could have done better. So revise. I know if you're going to mention something, know what it is and know what it means, because otherwise it's a bit embarrassing. So yeah, got recruited for the placement year, was placed in Home Office. Can't really talk about anything that I did, to be honest, because it was all very sensitive, but I did a range of projects there. So there was a bit of like demographic analysis using SQL, kind of just pulling out key stats about like different cuts of the population. I also did a bit of analysis about, they were looking to open a new office, which I believe has been open since now. So I basically was handed a load of addresses of staff members, and they were like, work out how long it would be for all these staff to make it to the new office. So that was a interesting project as well. So then after I was at Home Office, I went back to university, finished my degree, and during my time at Home Office, I was able to apply for the GORS mainstream and do my interview and everything while I was still working at Home Office. So I was successful in that interview and was able to defer my starting for a year while I finished my degree. So that was nice going into my final year when everyone was trying to scramble to get on grad schemes and get any job, and I was just kind of chilling because I already had my job waiting for me at the end. So nearer to the time of graduating, I found out that I was going to be placed in HMRC, because I'd picked Liverpool. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm a Scouser. I picked Liverpool as my location, so I was placed in HMRC. This was now 2020, so Mithu's touched on COVID. This meant that I started again in GORS in COVID times. So that was a little bit strange, having to start everything virtually when I'd gone from doing 5 days in an office when I was at Home Office. So yeah, started in HMRC in 2020 and was placed in the direct business taxes team, which is the team I'm still in now, which we kind of work on stuff to do with corporation tax, so like the biggest businesses in the country. We're kind of just doing different bits of analysis on tax relief. Specifically in my little section, we look at research and development tax relief. So this is when companies can get like tax credits and deductions from their tax bill for doing research and development activities. I won't bore you with the details, but it means that I do a lot of work in R. I did a lot of stuff to do with like national statistics publications. So they were basically kind of like really long and manual processes in Excel, and my job was kind of moving all of that Excel stuff into R and getting it to be like a much slicker process. So that was really useful for developing my R skills. I've also done, what else do I do? So then I took a little bit of a different route because I got promoted to senior officer, and I went and joined the compliance team. So in that role, I was doing a bit of evaluation, so that meant that I could develop more of my soft OR skills in that role, and it was a lot of engagement with stakeholders, just a lot of writing up reports and stuff, which again is very useful, because I feel like a lot of times if you're doing like a maths degree or stuff like that, you're not learning a lot of that stuff, like and you know, I hadn't really written a report since I was at uni, so that was very useful. And then kind of moved back into direct business taxes, again working on research and development stuff. And the past few weeks I've been doing a lot of work for the budget, which is coming up next week. And yeah, so to summarize a day in the life, it's kind of just, it's very varied, to be honest, depending on the role you're in. And once you're in somewhere, like I can only really talk to HMRC now because there's been a lot of change in Home Office, so I don't really know how that runs anymore. But and in HMRC, it's kind of like you're not really restricted what team you're in just for being gorgeous. You can kind of really do anything that you fancy, to be honest, if you just apply for the jobs. So yeah, it's very varied. I could be doing a whole day of like Excel spreadsheet modeling, or I could be doing a whole day of writing code. It really just depends. And then I have a lot of little side quests. So up until recently, I was running like a monthly OR community in HMRC, where different analysts come and kind of present their work. I also get involved with planning the annual GORS conference, which my two leads on, and yeah, different bits and bobs. I'll get involved with student recruitment, so getting to like sift and sometimes interview student applications. That is really useful as well if you're kind of looking to improve your own application writing and stuff. It's good to see kind of good examples and sometimes bad examples of what not to do. And yeah, so there's just like lots to get involved in. It's very varied, and you can kind of tailor your experience to develop the areas that you want to develop. Like managers are always quite open to your development needs and kind of finding projects to be able to fit your needs and what you want to develop for the future. But yeah, I guess that's my spiel. Mitu, was there anything else you wanted me to cover that would be helpful?
I think, yeah, just following on from what Charlotte's just said, you know, in terms of the community, as I said, because we're sort of spread throughout the nations, you know, our annual conference is a sort of a really good hub for networking. So we have that every year. That's February, as Charlotte just mentioned. So you will have, if you join, you will have many opportunities to work with other departments, and you know, just within your own team. You know, if you're in one of the bigger departments like HMRC, Home Office, etc., you know, they have quite an extensive presence of OR analysts, but you know, we encourage you to move between departments. You know, if you're initially posted in a large one, move to you know, we encourage you to move to maybe a smaller one to see how it works. The thing about joining GORS is you are joining the profession rather than a department, so it makes it easier to move around between roles, because that's the way the community works, and we are a community. When we, you know, do exercise and things, you know, going back to my own example, when I worked in DFE, when we were coming across using a new analytical technique, my team were thinking of using DEA. We just wrote around the community and asked, has anybody used this before, because we were inexperienced. And actually, within a sort of a week, we had a working group set up because there were other colleagues who had already used it or were using it, you know, offered to QA our model, etc. There is a wealth of knowledge, and there are many ways of sharing that, and you can be as involved or not involved within the OR community as you want once you join, and that's the good thing about it, really. Jennifer, I hope that answers your question. If there's any others in terms of joining or anything like that. yeah,
I
we're
will
open
just
to.
say, sorry, Matteo.
Yeah.
I was just going to add about the community aspect. Like, it does very much feel when you're in goals like a community. Like, as I say, like I kind of set up the community within HMRC, but I've had like stats people and economics people kind of come to me and the team that I work with on that and kind of ask for tips, because those professions don't feel as community vibes. What am I saying? I can't think of a way to say that, but they're all a bit
yeah. Yeah, probably, yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah, you've
yeah.
and you know, you've nurtured that, taking it forward. So yeah.
So yeah, I think GORS in particular. I think because I mean we're massive now, but historically, because GORS have probably been a lot smaller than stats and economics, I think that's probably helped foster the underdog community spirit for GORS.
Yeah, we're one of the smaller analytical ones. Jennifer, so programming languages, it varies depending on which department you're in. Python are used, but some departments still have SAS because that's their system. So it really depends on which department you're in as to which language they mostly use.
Yeah, HMRC is a lot of SAS or SQL.
SQL as well, actually. I forgot about that. Yeah, education had SQL as well and R. So yeah. But just, you know, if you are thinking of applying, if you haven't done some of these, what we're looking for is your potential. So we're interested in what you have done, not what you haven't done. You know, we will not sit you in front of a model and expect you to, you know, run with it on day one. We will train you up. If you haven't got experience in whatever it is, that's what you will be given, is that we're looking for the potential, is what we're looking for, really. So just bear that in mind. You don't have to come with your toolkit already there. What we want you to do is expand your knowledge. And in terms of learning and development, regardless, outside of the fast stream, everybody that's in GORS, we have to do 100 hours pro rata of L&D, which is we keep a career professional development log. So that is an annual thing, and 50% of that is technical, and 50% of that log, you know, can be things like, you know, these sorts of things, you know, where the networking things and volunteering for the recruitment and stuff. So non-analytical bits. But so you know, and every department, the heads of profession keep an eye to make sure that you are keeping your CPD log up to date. So there is a lot of scope to if you're interested in certain areas, such as, say, programming languages, we have lots of interest groups. So, you know, you can do that as well as your day job if you want to learn some more. You know, there's lots of learning opportunities. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else? I don't know. Emma, is there anything else that I should be covering? I feel like.
I'm just having a quick look in the Q&A. I think you answered I think there's another one in from Jennifer. Did you want me to read the question out to you?
Yeah. Was that the tools and programming bit?
Yeah, the programming languages and the analytical tools. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just I answered that bit. That was the R and the Python bit. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! No, it's all right. I couldn't see the answer on my.
No.
On my
no.
thing.
I said it verbally. That's why I didn't write it. Do you want me to write it as well?
No. That's all good. No, perfect. I think those are the only two questions we have. If anyone else wants to add, oh, hold on. Have we got any more coming in? Oh, I think she might have asked another one as well.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah. Let's see. The badging boards. So the badging boards are for internal candidates. So if you're already in this. No, don't apologise. Thank goodness you're asking us loads of questions. This is what this is what I'm here. This is what we're here for, to answer questions. There's no such thing, you know. So do ask. The badging boards are for people who are already in the civil service. That's the way that works. So you can apply if you're already in the civil service but not a member of GORS. Then you apply through the badging route. But because this is through the EOR Society, I mean, I've sort of only gone through the mainstream and the fast stream because I presumed the majority of you would be external. So the badging route isn't open to external people.
Perfect.
Is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
I don't think we've got any more at the moment. So yeah, so we've got another 5 minutes or so. So if anyone else wants to add anything to the chat or the Q&A, so feel free to.
Yeah, just on the badging boards, in terms of the interview process within a badging board, it is very similar to a mainstream interview in terms of the structure of the interview. It's more like the mainstream rather than the fast stream interview, but it is for those that are already in the civil service that want to join the profession. So yeah, just okay.
Or sometimes I suppose it's like if you've ended up getting a promotion like elsewhere within a department that's not analytical and you want to catch up your GAWS grade.
Yeah, that's the other reason for doing it. Yeah. If you want to bring your GAWS grade up to your generalist grade, but I suppose that's getting into the technicalities of it. But no, that's fine. No, do say. Yeah. And do look at, have a look on our website. That'll give you a few more. There's postcards on there of, what people do and the variety of roles. Yeah, you could be working in a big department as part of a big analytical, division, or you could be in a multidisciplinary, smaller policy group. There are many models to our analytical groups. There's not, there isn't one size fits all, and that's the other reason we encourage you to move between departments to see how that rubric works in a different department. Because even before I moved here, I worked in an agency where I was the only analyst in that team. So it does open a lot of doors. But what can I do in it? High chance of getting in. Can I ask what degree are you doing, Jennifer? What's your degree? That might be the easiest way of saying to you.
I'm not sure if you're able to unmute yourself, Jennifer, or if you just add it to the chat or the Q&A.
So we're looking for highly numerate, so people. So that covers a wide range of degrees. It's not just maths degrees or stats degrees. So as long as a minimum of half of your degree needs to be of a highly numerate nature. So things like physics, etc. Let's see. Have you got a?
Do you know? I
yeah.
Just thought of a point. If that's okay. I don't know if you were finished saying what you were saying, but I mean, kind of like aside from the technical aspect, I know in my university I went to Liverpool John Moores, they are kind of really focused on getting you a job afterwards. So I guess this is probably like a niche of my course specifically, but every year we did modules on like careers skills and stuff. So like they taught us how to like write a good CV and stuff. And just by pure luck and coincidence, right before I applied for GAWS, we'd just done the module on competency-based answers. And that's always the application process in the civil service is like, writing in the STAR method, like situation, task, action, result. So I think that's where a lot of people fall down as well on the application process. Like they might be the most technically gifted person in the world, but if you aren't answering those questions right, you're not going to even get an interview. So I would say the way to increase your chances is just kind of practice writing in that STAR format, and writing, and just look through the civil service behaviours framework and the GAWS technical framework, and just make sure you're kind of hitting the sub points of the grade you're trying to hit, and thinking about answering those in the best way that you can. I think that's the biggest barrier to getting in, really. And obviously making sure you're doing 50% technical in your degree, but I think that's where a lot of people do fall down.
Perfect. Yeah. Literally, yeah. The style. If you answer the written parts using that style framework, structure, that sort of helps, because you've only got a limited number of words to write for each of those things, the 2 technical and the 3 behaviours. So, yeah.
But also the amount of people that don't use the word count, like use the word count. That shouldn't be advice I have to give, but the amount of people that will write 50 words in the 250 word limit box, you wouldn't believe.
So I think we're sort of approaching the end of the time now, but I just wanted to say thank you to the both of you for your time and for sharing your experiences. That's really interesting to hear.
That's all right.
Thanks,
If
Alan.
Yeah, if they do have any questions afterwards, I can put it in the chat actually. If you write to the GORS recruitment email box, if you have any questions after this that come to you, I realise it's a lot of information to take in. You're more, we will answer them. There isn't an autumn recruitment round this year, various reasons, but mostly because of freezes in budgets, but there will be a spring recruitment round, so please look out for our advert, and we hope to encourage a lot of you to come and join us come 2026.
Thank you, Mita and Charlotte, for your time.
That's all right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we'll now be hearing from Matthew Bunn from Catalyse Consulting. So for those of you who are just joining for the first time, there will be the opportunity to ask Matt some questions at the end of his presentation. And again, you'll just need to use the Q&A section at the top of the screen. So welcome Matthew.
Take myself off mute. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Emma and the RR Society, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all about a career in operational research. So let me just, manage my screens. There we go. So what I'll cover, I'll talk about me, which is always slightly awkward. I'll then top you through my career and some of the things that I've done to give you a flavour of what a career in operational research can look like, noting that no one career is the same. I'll offer you some reflections across that time, signpost where I would observe opportunities in defence OR, and then hopefully ample time for questions and answers. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions that you may have, however broad. So about me, so I'm an operational research professional. That's how I describe myself, and a systems thinker. I've been in the workplace for 18 years now, which has disappeared relatively quickly. And I deliver technical consultancy that supports strategy, policy, development of military capability, transformation and change. I've done that predominantly in defence, although I've also touched on the wider public sector. I'm a managing consultant at Catalyse, and we're an employee-owned, owned by an employee ownership trust consultancy firm based in Winchester in Hampshire. And prior to joining that, I had 15 years as an operational analyst in the civil service, both within DSTL and in the Ministry of Defence. Outside of all of that, I'm an associate fellow of the Operational Research Society, and at some point I'll pull my finger out and apply for fellowship. And I'm also, for my sins this year, chair of the International Symposium on Military Operational Research. So I'm just going to leave it on this slide for quite a while and just talk. So if I rewind time all the way back to when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with my life, I decided I wanted to go into medicine. I couldn't really tell you why. But I think reflecting back in time, it's because I really wanted two things out of a career. I wanted to work with people. I'm quite people orientated, and I wanted to solve problems. But fast forward a couple of years and being quite lazy as a teenage boy, I didn't get the grades. So I went to study biomedical science at the University of Kent with a plan to then step into medicine. After doing 3 more years of study, and I'm sure many of you will be in this kind of space, I decided I just couldn't continue studying and studying exams, and I wanted to get out into the workplace. But I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do at that point in time. I'd met my now wife at university, so I knew I wanted to live and work around Portsmouth. So I started applying for jobs. And amongst the flurry of applications, my late father-in-law, who worked at this organization called Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, said, why didn't you give it a go? So I went through the recruitment process, which took some time, and security clearances took some time, but I was offered a role, accepted, and stayed for the better part of 15 years. I began in the graduate development program, and I was based at that time in logistics, which is quite a classical operational research area. And in that time, I was looking at how we linked logistics to the outcome of military campaigns using methods like causal mapping, systems dynamics, stochastic modeling. I got into a bit of coding there. But I also got the opportunity to dip my toe in lots of different areas. So I went into high-level naval combat modeling, where I was trying to articulate single values for probability of kill of a particular weapon type against a particular maritime asset. I looked at decontamination of maritime vessels following a CBR attack. I built simulations of counterinsurgency, so it was really good for giving me loads of different problems, loads of different kinds of OR techniques that I got to experience and use as a foundational time in my career, kind of building my analytical tool set. In 2012, I stepped into a role leading our medical logistics analysis. So at this point, I started working a lot more closely with customers, embedding more with customers to understand their requirements and translate that into analytical programs of work. And the kinds of work I was doing here involved probabilistic modeling, so trying to estimate the number of casualties in a range of different scenarios, all the way from historical data and patterns through to physical simulations. I built simulation models of the flow of casualties through medical evacuation chains and within hospitals, thinking theme hospital, but much less jazzy. And I ran a lot of workshops and what we call tabletop exercises, which are where people gather around a big table with a map, and you discuss how you're going to effectively deliver, in this case, the medical component of military operations. Sorry, was there we jumping in there? No, fine, I will crack on. So in 2014, I was offered and took a sideways step into C4I-STAR, and defense loves an acronym. So that stands for command and control, which is all about making decisions, communications and computers, so how information is processed and shared, and then intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, so how you're gathering information. And I did a whole range of stuff in here. So I did strategic wargaming, optimization, linear programming. I did a lot of support to procurement programs, so decisions around what mods should buy, what the best thing, and that included things like Protector, which is a large UAV, P-8A, which is the maritime patrol aircraft, and some of the decision support technologies sat behind all of that. I took a sideways, well, not sideways step, sorry, I took a promotion, but outside of strictly analytics into a team leader role. And at this point, I was then managing a team of 20 to 25 analysts. And it's a relatively unusual model in DSTL in that you manage downwards and upwards. So I was managing everyone from new graduates up to people more senior than I was, which was quite a steep learning curve, but equipped me with a lot of people skills that I then took through all of the roles in my career. After 3 years, which felt a long time in doing that role, I stepped back into a purely technical role. And that was a mix at this point of account and portfolio management and technical delivery. And at its most demanding, I guess. I was maintaining a strategic portfolio level view across 100 different analytical projects, whilst managing a team of 50 or so analysts and military advisors, and that's where you have embedded military within your teams doing analysis to deliver a diverse range of projects. And at this point, it was properly diverse, from trying to understand where synthetic environments could be applied to the breadth of military problems, through to understanding how the culture of military command needed to change in response to the complexity and ambiguity in modern warfare. And that took me through to 2022. And I've been doing this for a while now, and you can see there's a pattern here where I do things for a few years and then move on. So I took the opportunity at this point to step into somebody I'd worked with, was off on maternity cover, so it gave me the opportunity to dip my toe into what it was like being an embedded science advisor in a military command. So I went up to what was called Strategic Command up in Northwood. It's now Cyber and Specialist Operations Command. And it's one of the 4 military commands in the UK alongside the Army, Navy and the Air Force. And I took on a role across that command essentially as an advisor for all things related to operational analysis. I was connecting the hard S&T, science and technology development, from within DSTL to military users. And I was part of the leadership team for a mix of civilian and military staff of 30 that were tackling some really complex and knotty problems, like how you effectively integrate activity across the different services, how you tackle delivery of operations short of warfare, what would be termed more widely like hybrid warfare, and how you integrate cyber effects into all of that. I then kind of took stock, and at that point I made the decision to jump into the private sector, and I joined as a management consultant in Catalyze, and I continue to deliver operational research studies, but from the private sector now. So that's included analytical support to procurement, understanding how important every building in defence is to what defence does. But I've also had the opportunity to translate lots of my analytical skills into tangential areas like organizational design and transformation. And I've been able to bring that really analytical, logical approach that's really valued by customers to reshape organizations, how they're constructed, how they operate, which still feels really impactful to me. So there's nothing like a presentation without some pictures. So just going anti-clockwise from the top left, so that is a Jackal Mark II, and I got to clamber all over one of those as part of a study looking at procurement lessons and improving procurement. As you go down to the Chinook helicopter and the Land Rover battlefield ambulance, I did a whole load of work around the military medical evacuation chain, and again clambered across all of those kinds of platforms, including the simulated platforms for how we were training people before they went out to Afghanistan. I also did the analysis that underpinned all of the work behind what a future ambulance needs to look like. The next 2 pictures, so the big airplane bottom center is the P8A Poseidon, and I did all of the work there looking at the scaling for the platform, but also how you might make that a multi-role vehicle and deliver other military requirements from it. And the bottom right is it dropping a sonar buoy, because that's the primary purpose in detecting submarines. If I go to the top center, that's Protector. It's a big UAV for ISTAR, and again I did a whole load of work around that and got to see them all in sheds and look at the operator terminals and so on and so forth. So you get really embedded into all of this military kit. And then last but not least, so the door behind that, the Prime Minister standing there, was where I worked up in Northwood. And the gentleman on the left is Jim Hockenhole, and he is Commander, Cyber and Specialist Operation Command, and also gave my leaving speech when I left the civil service. So again, you really embed and get into the real decision makers here. So some reflections. I think it's important that you do something that you feel purposeful. And to me, having that impact really felt purposeful. So the work that I've done, the analysis, the support to decision making has shaped those strategic choices in defence and covered big strategic choices and programs worth billions of pounds. I've redesigned organisations, and that's covered thousands of roles now. But whenever I was challenged back in DSDL when I was running part of the graduate recruitment campaign of what's the thing that really keeps you doing this work, it was always the same example, which was feedback that I got from some of my medical analysis, reach back, and that's where an operational commander will put a request back into the enterprise for some analysis to support their live operational decision making. And in this context, it was around the size and shape of medical facilities. And the feedback I got was that it saved time, it saved money, but ultimately it saved lives. And that to me lives with me. The diversity in work. So hopefully you've got a flavour of that diversity. That's not diversity day to day. So there were periods of time where I was doing the same project day in, day out. But there's a real diversity from project to project over time in the things that you're doing, both in terms of the subject matter you're conducting analysis on, but also the different techniques for different problems. I've spanned everything from coding and really quite hard simulation through to where I am now, which is much more on the softer analytical end of the spectrum. The third point there on no career the same, I definitely have found that I've had the opportunity to shape the work that I do and shape the roles that I go for based on what I enjoy. And some of my colleagues really enjoy the data-centric hard simulation and data science, and they've been able to shape a career around doing that. I found over time that actually what I more naturally gravitate towards are the really complex, knotty problems that actually the real value is around problem structuring, workshopping, qualitative solutions. So simpler operational research techniques applied to really complex problems. And I've been able to carve a career increasingly doing that kind of thing. But all of this kind of work really equips you with skills that are valued in all roles. Evidence-based decision making and being able to consider all of those different perspectives, all of the different data sources to recommend a decision means you're equipped to consider all those things and make decisions. It inculcates an ability to communicate really effectively, both written and verbal communication. And it also, as you move through your career, gives you some real leadership capabilities. And I've certainly found the delta between when I started my career as a relatively shy, unable to communicate without blushing analyst through to where I am now has been vast, and that's been enabled by the kind of work that I've been able to do as a operational research professional. I'll finish on opportunities, and I've put organisations up here. I think I'm bookended in this. I think you've just had a Gauze briefing, and I'm a big fan of Gauze. I've worked with Gauze badged analysts across defence, and it's a really good pathway to delivering analysis from the public sector. I'm also a big fan of DSDL, and I believe my ex-colleague Paul is going to chat to you about life in DSDL next. And I really enjoyed my time in DSDL and think of it very fondly in terms of building that bedrock for me as an analyst. But there are roles in the private sector as well. So I work for Catalyze, as I said, we're a small company, so 40 or so people, but increasingly a large proponent of that is taken up by graduate analysts that we're bringing through. There's a couple of other companies there operating the same kind of geographical space and the same kind of technical space in Sagentia and Sirius, who also recruit graduates on a near persistent basis. And finally, the Operational Research Society has resources that can help you to find jobs in the operational research profession. And there are many more. You'll hear about from some of them. You will have heard from some of them through the course of this careers fair. But there are many other companies out there who do this kind of work. If what I've heard resonates with you as an interesting career. So I'll stop talking there and offer the mic to Q&A. If you've got any questions about any of that, then feel free. I'm just opening the Q&A now. And if not, I'm more than happy to give you time back. Emma, I think we've probably culminated then. I'm more than happy to take questions offline, and my contact details are available, I think, through the OR Society.
Thanks, Matt, for sharing your career experiences. Yeah, I don't know, so we'll just leave it in one more minute just in case if people are still sort of typing. But yeah, so if you do have any questions for Matt, feel free to leave them in the Q&A section, or as Matt said, he can answer the questions offline. Do you have like an email that people could potentially, or a way of sort of contacting you, Matt?
I do. I'll drop it in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening, and
Yeah,
good luck.
I think that might be it then. Yeah. But no, so thank you again, Matt, for giving your time today.
No worries. Have a great day, everyone.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody's well. Just to introduce our next speaker is Paul Sims from DSTL. If I could just remind you to pop any questions in the Q&A box, please. If you wish to remain anonymous, if you could please turn off your camera and mute until questions arise. Thank you.
Well, hello everyone. It's absolutely lovely to be able to talk for a few minutes about my career in operational research, which very much, in fact, parallels Matt's in some ways. So, but I'll have a bit of a different take on it. So, if I can share my screen, right. So, and if I now, oops, there we go. I've called it 36 years in defence operational research because I'm coming to the end or approaching the end of a long and very enjoyable career working for the MOD. I work for Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, which I'll give a quick rundown on when time comes, which is part of the MOD. So really what I want to do in the next 20 minutes or so, and afterwards there'll be a little bit of time for questions, is that I want to just say a little bit about what's happened in my career and how I sort of fell into it, and what I've done, and that, and because I think it's more often than not we tend to fall into our careers rather than having any plan. So this is what happened to me, basically. I started out my life intending to go into biological research. I was really fascinated by biology, by ecology, by the natural world in general. And I suppose inspired by my father, who was very much into natural history. So I did my first degree in applied biology at Brunel, graduated in 1982. Still wanting to pursue the biological sciences, I ended up ended up then going to do a PhD in zoology. Took a little bit longer than expected. Graduated there in 1987, and I worked on these little guys. This is a common housefly, Musca domestica, and I was doing work on their vision primarily and their flight. And how they use their vision in flight to actually guide their behavior. Really fascinating stuff, I found, but I sort of got the idea, I don't know why, that focusing on something very narrow intensively for a long time possibly wasn't going to be me. And also careers in biology at the time were not looking good at the end of the 1980s. The university system was changing massively, and I was having my doubts as to whether I wanted to be part of it. However, I spent a lot of my spare time wargaming and reading military history, purely for enjoyment. I've always been interested in military things since a very young age. Had no idea about joining the army. It just wasn't the sort of thing that I would have suited my personality, my temperament, but I really enjoyed reading it, studying it, wargaming, recreating battles, using both board gaming and using model soldiers. So that was what I did in the 1980s. Without really an idea that this would almost end up becoming my hobby, and my work life would effectively swap over, and so I'd end up doing military history and wargaming, and having natural history as a hobby. Anyway, the career prospects, as I said, weren't very good in the 1980s. For doing biology. So I applied for a number of things, including things like academic publishing, and I applied to do operational research as a potential career opportunity in 1989, and I was taken on as an operational researcher in 1989 at RADI, the Royal Armament Research and Development Establishment. It then was Fort Halstead in Sevenoaks. I have to say, I'd actually heard of operational research through my reading of military history. I knew about what happened in World War II with the operational research, but having studied biology rather than mathematics, I'd sort of counted myself out. I thought, well, you've got to be you've got to be a real mathematical whiz in order to do operational research, and so I'd sort of counted myself out. But it turned out when I joined Fort Halstead that there were people who'd studied all sorts of disciplines, biology like myself, lots of chemists and physicists. There was an historian there, a philosopher, and in fact an archaeologist as well. So all sorts of people came from all sorts of backgrounds. And the other thing that happened was that when I was doing my PhD at Queen Mary College at London, one of the people who was, I think, 2 years ahead of me in his studies, so he was coming to the end as I was starting, he got a job doing operational research for British Airways, and that was where that was really my first sort of realization that you didn't need to be a mathematician to do operational research. You could actually approach it from a number of angles. And of course now I realize how naive I was to think that that was actually the case in the first place. Although having said that, I think the career advertisements put out by the MOD in the 1980s didn't help. They were talking about mathematics graduates and all that sort of thing, or people who were highly competent in the mathematical sciences. Anyway, I joined Fort Halstead, RADI, right at the end of the Cold War, and did a little bit of operational support to the 1991 Gulf War as a very junior analyst, helping out with some wargaming there. And again, I realized, just how much wargaming professionally was similar to the sort of wargaming I'd done in the hobby sphere. It's just that you've got rather more reliable numbers to work with rather than having to guess them as a hobby wargamer. yes, I've actually covered that. That was my motivation for joining, really. Anyway, I ended up doing wargaming and simulation at Fort Halstead, computer-based simulation and computer-based wargaming, in actual fact, in the 1990s. And also tactical wargaming. So this was looking at all sorts of problems because it was RADI. It was very much in the land domain, and that's what I ended up doing for most of the 1990s. Excuse me, I'm just going to reorientate my screen because it's not ideal for looking at what's coming up. Right, okay. So then after that, I moved to doing procurement studies at Fort Halstead again, and the procurement studies, although they were the work was mathematical, there was always a very large human factors component, which I felt in my bones and professionally that we weren't focusing on too much, and as much as we should have done, and the human factors side of things, integrating that with the equipment, actually was one of the things that I started to think, it's not all sort of mathematics and sort of deterministic stuff and machines. There's a big human factor as well that perhaps the MOD wasn't taking as much notice of as perhaps we should. Anyway, the systems I was working on, Watchkeeper, an unmanned aerial vehicle, a sort of medium range unmanned aerial vehicle. I always regard my Watchkeeper time as being with great affection, because I sort of think of this as being my system, even though I was a very small cog in a very large machine. But I led the operational research team that actually made the case that this was a cost-effective system that the MOD should buy it in the early 2000s, and it came into service and did very useful service in Afghanistan and other places. So I sort of regard it as being sort of one of my systems, and really an area where I think I did actually have an impact, because I worked on a number of systems, some of which went into service, some of which didn't because they were judged not to be cost effective or for other reasons that lie outside the operational research domain. Anyway, this is my system, and I think it's just coming to the end of its service life now, is being replaced by a system called Puma. But it's done, as I say, it's done over a decade of good service as an I-STAR system. That's intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and reconnaissance. Then anyway, oh yes, side to see what the slide said. I did a team leading role for a few years, and that was when teams were rather smaller, but I also had a big technical role as well. So that was something that was interesting. I was very pleased I did it, but I realized that I wasn't probably cut out to become a group leader and progress my career in that way, because I really had this itch to get back full time to the technical side, which was the side which really sort of motivated me and lit my candle. So I was looking at land and joint questions, and then gravitated towards historical analysis. Now, historical analysis, it's not the same as history. It is, in fact, the use of historical data to feed operational analysis and statistics. So it's a slightly different discipline from what I call historians' history. It's taking a very statistical approach to history, and that's what I've been doing for the for the last I guess sort of 15 years now, 15 getting on sort of on and off for 20 years in actual fact. And come on, next bullet point. Yes. So the the work in historical analysis, you research what's happened in the past. The big part of it, though, is communicating that to the people who need to know. And this is both our customers in the wider MOD, our military people. So there's a big communications part of the work, and also mentoring people, because you know, none of us are here forever. We move on, we retire, and that. So mentoring has become quite a big part of my work, I think, unofficially and officially. And of course, that includes mentoring people for the OR Society accreditation. I've now maybe mentored something like a dozen people through the system, through from associates right through to fellows. And again, that gives me a huge sense of satisfaction, because I'm seeing people develop. I'm seeing them move into the role, to become more comfortable with mentoring people themselves, and also to read into the subject, to become local experts and all that sort of thing. So it's a huge privilege to have influenced other people's careers in that way, including some people who've gone on to do far greater things than I have. But it's a lovely feeling. So I'm now going to talk a little bit about what are sort of reflections on my career, my work with DSTL, and what's happened really. So I think the first thing, and I've given a few careers talks to schools and colleges, and the thing I would say is the degree specialism that you take is unimportant. As long as you have a basis of numerical ability, and I wouldn't even say mathematical ability, it's really just being comfortable with numbers and statistics, that's fine. Lots of the students I've talked to in schools have been terribly hung up about, you know, should they study mathematics or physics at degree level, or should they do biology, or should they do geography or something like that? And I say, look, you know, it's unimportant. Do something you're interested in. You're not closing the door on a career in operational research by actually by doing anything really. We've got people with pretty much every graduate qualification you could think of in the sciences, and quite a few in the humanities, and indeed including someone who's just joined our team who did a law degree. She then did a PhD in military history. So there are all sorts of career routes into our work. The most important thing is the transferable skills. I learned stuff at in my first degree about things like report writing, problem structuring, communicating, experimental design, statistics, all those sorts of things, and I still use them. People may think that their degree was sort of something they did in their early 20s and it's past, it's not relevant. No, it is still relevant, and the stuff that was taught to me at Brunel and Queen Mary College, I'm still using it you know, every day, and that I think is really, really important. So at Brunel, for instance, we did a module in statistics, which was compulsory because doing biology, biological systems are poorly behaved. They you know, they have lots of variability, big error bars, just like military systems in actual fact. So I'm still applying the techniques I learned there. Now, the civil service operational research, whether you're doing it for DSTL or another part of MOD, offers an incredible variety of experience, I would say, unparalleled, because, excuse me, the MOD, for instance, has to cover all the sciences that are relevant to defence, and that is much much wider than just operational research and engineering. It covers things like chemistry and physics, because of course physics dominates engineering and space and everything like that. So we have to cover all the sciences. We also cover the human sciences. So I'm in contact with people who've done or who still do every discipline of science and engineering that the MOD has to encompass. But a really important part of our job, though, and I've realised this later on in my career, although I realised it right from the start, but it really has been hammered home later on. Writing and knowledge management are really important. You do a study, you communicate the results to the study customer, the decision makers, and you go out to main building maybe and do a half-hour presentation. That's the important part of it for the decision makers. That feeds into the decision-making process. But of course, the fact that you've done that study is you've got to have an enduring record. Otherwise, someone's going to say, oh, what did we do in 2025? And someone looks blank and says, oh, Paul Sims did that 10 years ago, but he's retired now, so no idea what we did. So basically, writing a good, clear report for the record and then getting it onto the knowledge database is really, really important. And of course, one of the reasons for this is that our customers have typically only been in post for 1 to 2 years. People rotate through posts, they go to a promotion or to a new posting or indeed to an operation or whatever. And so you're getting people as customers who don't know as much about the background and what's been done before. So we are really one of the continuity organisations of the MOD. Now, looking at it from a much more sort of a personal point of view, I've met some great people and have been to some great places, to be honest. All sorts of opportunities have presented themselves, and you can grab them or you can be sent on them, and it really has been. I've been to lots of places that I never would have been, never would have been had I not been with the civil service and meeting up with operational researchers from the other NATO nations, going to the US quite a lot, continental Europe. It's been a really interesting career, and some other colleagues have been to on operational postings, which I've not done, so there are opportunities to doing all sorts of stuff. It really satisfies what I call the exploring itch. And as a human factors person, I've started to explore the exploring itch, and apparently it's all about your D4 dopamine receptors, which I suspect I have. I've never had a genetic test to find out, but people who have the exploring itch, that's probably what motivates them. And of course, it's not only exploring physically, going to new places, it's also exploring intellectually. Finding out about new systems, what makes systems tick, finding out about other people's take on science and engineering and all that sort of thing. So, what an opportunity to do that, basically. I think the sorry, look at my slides around the top corner. I think the conferences I've been to have really been the highlights, and this is because I also really like talking to other people and finding out what they've done and that sort of thing. So conferences like the OR Society conference, I think I've done about 5 of those over my career, and also ISMOR, the International Symposium on Military Operational Research. I've done rather more than 5 of those, I think, and they're always been a highlight of the year. So certainly something that I look forward to, but I think you only get the best out of those conferences if you present stuff yourself, because that then gives you a hook to talk to people. People come and talk to you because they now know what you do, rather than just being a face in the audience. And the whole thing is a very, very worthwhile experience. And of course, once you're late in your career, it's the way you learn. Early in your career, you go on courses, you are taught, you are the object of you're the object of someone teaching you. Later in your career, you're passing on your experience to other people, and you learn by being with other people and hearing what your peers have got to say. So really, heading into retirement, I'm tapering down into retirement, which means basically reducing my reducing my hours, and in March, I collect my state pension and my bus pass, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to carry on working 2 days a week with absolutely no regrets. You know, I couldn't give up the job and have a clean break. Yes, I could go back to wargaming and walking in the downs and looking for insects and all that sort of thing, but I really miss the people, so that's not for me. So I'm going to taper down and carry on working at a much lower pace for as long as I can, and hopefully still sort of contributing something to the operational research community. Well, that's it for me, really, as far as what I've actually got to say. As an historical analyst, I feel obliged to offer you a picture of an historical battle, the Battle of Ladysmith in 1900. And again, you know, the Boer War may seem very remote, over 100 years ago, but there are all sorts of parallels between old conflicts and modern conflicts, simply because it's undertaken by humans, and the human factors are really important, so we can learn from what's gone on in history. The lessons of history are by no means irrelevant. So I'm going to say that's it from me, really. I'm going to turn on the question and answer panel. Oh no, I already had it on, so I turned it off now, so I'm just going to turn it on again. If anyone has got any questions, or if they want to raise their hand or come off mute or whatever in the last 5 minutes, welcome to answer any questions you have.
I think there is a question there, Paul.
Oh, is there? Oh, right. Okay. Well, I can't see.
Would you like me to? I could happily read it to you. The question is, how has involvement with the OR Society been valuable to you? You mentioned conferences, which sound great, but are there any other examples?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you know, it must be a computer glitch. I can't see that. Well, how has it been useful to me? I think it's really been useful to broaden my view, really. The OR Society conferences were absolutely brilliant. Okay, they have a defence stream, or some of them have a defence stream. But also, I've really enjoyed going to things like, say, the health stream, because there's an overlap between health and defence, in that defence obviously has got military medicine, which is which is part of military logistics. So understanding how that fits in, logistics again. Still remember a brilliant talk. I think it got the OR Society prize on logistics for Sainsbury's. This was in the 2000s, I think. Absolutely excellent talk, and knowing how they organize their logistics, not just the sort of not just the transport side of things, which is everyone thinks of logistics as being trucks. No, in fact, it's an information system. It's supply and demand, and that, and knowing how other people did that was really useful to the work we do. As I say, as an OR Society mentor, I see people broadening their horizons. Also, we understand, you know, other techniques are used. Lots of soft OR. I'm not a I've used SoftOR. I'm not a SoftOR guru, but actually finding out how other people have used it, because I've had to use it sometimes, and that's been really useful. So yeah, all sorts of crossover between, and again, you know, really enjoyed the OR Society conferences to learn about other methods, to expose my work effectively to a bit of peer review, because people will come up to you and say, oh, you know, I'm concerned about this or something like that, and you'll think, oh gosh, you know, no one internally pointed that out or something like that. So there's all sorts of ways in which the bigger sort of the crossover, the cross-fertilization, and there have been some quite good articles in the Journal of the Operational Research Society about military OR, including, funnily enough, the one in 1987, which inspired me to move from simulation as an OR technique to historical analysis, by one of our colleagues called David Rowland. It's an absolute milestone paper, and I'm still referring people to it now, as you know, it's one of those things. So JAWS, Journal of Simulation, that, yes, actually the Journal of Simulation did a lot about validation and verification. And a colleague of mine, Paul Glover, who's very recently retired, did a lot of work there. And I mean, you know, the ability to meet some of my heroes like Mike Pidd, who wrote the book Tools for Thinking, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. I can't see any other questions in my Q&A, but if there are any, if someone would shout out, Mandy, see anything?
So I don't think there is any.
There was one other. Any key book recommendations to support a career in OR?
Oh my gosh! Well, Mike Pidd's Tools for Thinking is brilliant.
Seconded.
Yeah, but funnily enough, I wrote a paper. This was about 4 years ago. I wrote a paper at DSTL for book recommendations for historical analysis. And reviewing my bookshelf and the other stuff I had, I came to the conclusion that really there were so many good books out there, it was awfully hard to single out, you know, even a small list. I came up with what I called a bluffer's list of 12, but that was horribly difficult to, and that was much more in historical analysis and military affairs. So I won't try to recall them now, but there's a huge amount out there, and I think in anyone's organization, what I would say is go to one of the people who are late in their careers and try and assemble some lists. But I've actually got a directory on my hard drive, which is a directory of lists, and there's very little overlap between lists, but all of the lists are worthwhile. So it's there's a huge amount of literature out there. So explore, talk to your senior colleagues, recommend books. I share recommendations of books on our internal Facebook type application, which is called Engage, and I share my book recommendations there, and other colleagues share their book recommendations with us. So that's how I would process. But thank you for that, Michael. That's interesting.
Thanks to Jim Ura. I'm just relaying them.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Well, I think I've gone over time, Mandy, so it's probably over to the next person.
Yes, thank you, Paul. That was really informative. Our next speaker is Dr. Michael Mortensen, and he's from Warwick Business School.
Thank you very much. Yes, so yeah, I'll hopefully have some slides coming up in a moment. I'm not so much talking about my own career, but I will reflect ever so slightly on that at the start. And I think there's definitely a lot of things I would say chime with Paul's description of a career in this field. But primarily my focus is going to be on really the impact AI is having and may have on the data professions as a whole. And really my argument I'm going to make to you is that as much as there's threats and challenges in this space, there's actually a great opportunity for the the new generation of graduates to come in and really take advantage of some of the opportunities that I think will come. I've got my credit slide, but I'll do it from memory while I wait for that to come up. So yeah, much like Paul, I never sort of intended to get into these fields. In fact, my first degree was in film studies, believe it or not. But from there, I progressed into various tech roles, sort of working in e-commerce and a variety of sectors around that, before eventually coming back to study at master's level and to go on to do a PhD in analytics, it was officially in, which brought me into contact with the Operational Research Society. So that's 2011. And I've been working with them, attending the conferences, as Paul described, since then. But I think, unlike many in the OR community, I have a slightly more computational focus than most. So I put a lot of time working in AI in a practical way as well, but trying to sort of marry a lot of the OR mindset with the technology elements of AI. In terms of my current roles, I'm currently the course director for our MSc in Business Analytics and Artificial Intelligence at WBS. And I'm also research lead for a group looking at artificial intelligence in financial technology. But I've also had a long interest in the careers market in general. My PhD was looking at, what courses need to cover in order to make graduates ready for the current world. Spoilers, what I recommended in 2014, things have moved on a little bit, and that will be somewhat the subject of this talk. Any luck in getting me access to the slides? Would it be easier if I share the slides in the chat, perhaps?
The alternative is I can share the slide and you can just tell me when to move on, but
yeah, quite.
I don't know if it's on a Gmail account, it won't let me add you as a presenter.
I'm on a Gmail account, am I?
Apparently.
Okay. Right. Have you got my slides, or do you need me to send them to you?
No, it's fine. I've got those. Just bear with me 1 second while I get into them.
Thanks, Mandy. So we'll have to do the annoying next slide thing. Apologies up front for that. And we can start with 2 next slides, in fact, when you are able to share, because I've covered slide 2. It is the rule of law that if you come to talk about technology, invariably the technology won't work. So, entirely to be expected.
It would be on yours, Michael, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. It has to be that way. There is an inherent irony in life that consistently punishes us. Okay, I am okay. I'm gonna just while Mandy does
I'm working on it.
No problem. I'm going to carry on talking if that's okay, and then hopefully we'll join up at some point. So, needless to say, AI is peak hype at this moment in time. You don't have to go too far to find a news article talking about how AI is destroying jobs markets or eroding the ability of students to study. One of the headlines I would be showing says it's obviously peak hype right now. The joke I normally make is that I've worked in AI before it was any good, and certainly we didn't have these sort of headline problems in 2015. And fundamentally, to set it up, I think, as young people going into the jobs market, irrespective of profession, but I will focus primarily on analytics, operational research, and the wider data professions, as I like to call it. We are in a sort of best of times, worst of times situations. There's definitely a lot of pressure in that market, a lot of challenges for people trying to break in. But as I will argue towards the end, I think there's also great opportunity. I might not get away with it anymore. Okay, I probably do need my slides at this point. So
hopefully about 60 seconds.
Okay, I can live with that. Thank you. So what I'm going to do in terms of the structure of this, I've got a small amount of content where I'm just going to talk a little bit about how these tools work, not so much to inform you in terms of a lecture. There's a lot more to learn on it, but just I think there's a few elements of them, of their inner workings, that are worth understanding to be able to see really their limitations, but also how they need to be used to be successful in work. So I'll first cover a bit on this, and then I will go into really how I think AI might impact the data professions, how we might be using AI, how we might be using these tools. To a large extent, my focus is not necessarily on where these tools are right this second, but where we might reasonably expect them to be over the next 2 to 3 years. There's still definitely some work that needs to be done. How does that impact the roles? How does it impact the actual work that we do? How does it impact the opportunities we have? Wonderful. Thank you, Mandy. Can you jump all the way to slide 6, I think it is. I think that's how far I've got you.
Yep.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you.
No problem.
Just need to full screen it probably if you could. Cool. Okay. We're not having the best of luck at the moment. Okay. You might just be able to see in the background, I've put a slide up with the letters GPT. So, I mean, this is not me shilling for OpenAI and trying to recommend one tool over another, but we will all be familiar with ChatGPT. What you may not all be familiar with is what that name actually means. So the chat part of it is fairly self-explanatory. Wonderful, what's happening. The remaining letters. So Mandy, would you mind sharing it on slideshow mode, like the button at the bottom, or slideshow from current slide?
Sorry, which side is that?
If you click on slideshow and the top ribbon.
Oh yeah.
Then you can go from current slide as the second button.
So let's just get rid of
second
that.
from the left. Yeah, that's Microsoft trying to sell AI to us. So second from the left on that ribbon is from current slide. Perfect. Okay, and so you can flick for the animation if you don't mind. So we're probably not familiar with what the chat bit does. How about the G, the P, and the T? If you could just click next, Mandy. So the G part of it stands for generative. P is about the pre-training of these models, and T is the architecture they all seem to universally use today, whether you're using Gemini, Qwen, ChatGPT, whatever they are all based on this transformer architecture. Next slide. Sorry, there might be a few animations in this. There might be a lot of next sliding, I'm afraid. But I'm just going to go through each of these one by one. So the G, the generative part, I only have one sort of key point to make, or 2 key points. This is not necessarily a brand new field as you might think. I've been working in generative AI for sort of over a decade, back when it definitely wasn't any good. So can we next slide? Is there a control button? That might be easier. No, I don't think there is. Yeah, and the other point to make is that just when we start working in a generative type way, it is a far harder problem to resolve. There's a lot more we need to model in the distribution to make generative work. We could skip 2 slides now, Mandy. The second part of that then leads us into pre-trained. Sorry, the slides aren't moving.
Yeah, I think it's because since we've enlarged it, it doesn't seem to work like it.
Okay, I will then just probably have to switch to just talking and make the most of it. So what do we mean by pre-training? So the idea is that with these models, we give them an initial training task, which is about building a general intelligence. So the classic example for text-based models is next word prediction. We get them to do these next word prediction tasks on massive data sets, petabytes worth of data for very long periods of time. And over those very long periods of time, and with lots and lots of compute used, they get a good general understanding of language. Now that alone won't make a good chatbot or a good model to do a variety of tasks. What we need to do from there is a second round of training, we call fine tuning. That can be to become a good chatbot. We use a process called reinforcement learning with human feedback, where the model learns to write text that humans will like, but it can be fine tuning in lots of different ways, as we'll talk about in due course. Okay, one key thing to flag is that every time AI generates anything, whether it generates a new word or whether it generates a pixel in an image, it does so by paying attention to the words that are around it, essentially. That means it's constantly paying attention to the prompts that you've put in, but also its own output. That leads us to this world of sort of prompt engineering, which I'm not going to oversell, but we do live in a garbage in, garbage out world. If your prompt that you put in is inaccurate, then the model itself, the results will be inaccurate. But also that the model is paying attention to the stuff it's done previously. And if you've used these tools before, you will find situations where you can get stuck in a loop It's made a mistake and it can't seem to right this mistake. It's paying attention to the mistake it made and then constantly repeating that mistake, essentially. Also worth noting that the longer that history becomes, the more things it's done in that period of time, the harder it can be to find the right context to do the task in hand. So the length of work can be a problem as well. Now, as groundbreaking as these chatbots have been, they are not the thing that really is a threat to anyone's job. Certainly in our field, chatbots are not replacing any of our roles. Where the hype train has since moved to, and when people talk about automation, this is essentially what they are really talking about. Yeah, we can go from that way around if you want. Trying again. Okay, when people are talking about automation and job automation, what they are talking about essentially is agentic AI, the use of AI systems, large language models, to power intelligent agents. So there's a couple of things worth noting when we start talking about agents. In general, we are talking about specialists, AIs that are asked to specialize, often by using fine tuning on a smaller, more specific task. So if we can take a task that we might commonly do, such as prepare a data set for modeling, if we wanted agents to do it, the ideal thing would be to break that task down into several small units of work. So you might have a joining agent, you may have a missing data agent, whatever it might be, a specialist unit essentially that can then work and split that problem up and work on it in parallel fundamentally. The idea is that every agent in that system is expressed a clear goal. That can come from the prompt that we write, or it can be expressed by another agent to it. That we have some notion of memory in the system, that agents can remember the things they've done previously, but also potentially have long-term memory, which we represent by being able to write to a database or read from a database. And perhaps the most important part for this talk, we can give agents access to tools. So tools cover a wide variety of things. The classic first example is a calculator. We know that AIs don't really understand the math, but if we can give an AI a calculator and we can tell it when a calculator is useful to use. So it can recognize that it's got a sum it needs to do. It can open the calculator tool, do the calculation, get the result back. And we can do this with lots of other things. So internet search, database search. We can connect our agents to systems such as Microsoft Teams. I could have an agent on here flicking my slides or whatever it might be. And we can also get them to work with bespoke software. But the bit that perhaps is most important for this audience, we absolutely can give agents access to analytical or OR models. We absolutely can allow agents to run their own optimization model or simulation model, and potentially even to design those modules as well. We're not quite there yet, but it was very reasonable that could happen in the next few years. So once we start thinking in this fashion, we can really start to panic about, is my career over before it even began? Am I gonna, is there a role to go into? Spoilers, panic not. I think absolutely there is a key role for professionals. It's just that the nature of that work is going to change fairly dramatically. So at this point, I normally would ask my students, this is my favorite bit, I would ask my students, who flies a plane? And hopefully I get a Pavlov's dog style response where someone says, a pilot flies a plane. And then I could do my little smug look and say, aha, but actually a pilot only flies a plane for a fairly limited amount of the time. The majority of the flight is, of course, run by the autopilot. And this is an old technology, a very basic form of AI, essentially, but it actually gives us a really good metaphor and framework to think about what work might look like in a post-AI kind of world. If we are able to progress these agentic systems on the trajectory that it looks like we will, we're very much at the early stages now. I don't believe agent systems are anywhere near ready to do the sort of complex tasks that we would do in the data professions, but we could reasonably expect them to become reasonably good at some of them in the next few years. So what is the model we can think about for how that might work? And I'm pushing you towards thinking about the autopilot pilot metaphor. This slide, you would have liked this slide, Paul, because this slide actually is a reference from Pidd's book on problems. So Pidd argues that really there are 3 types of work we might do. Puzzles. In a puzzle, everyone agrees on both how we formulate the problem and also what the solution looks like. Problems, where we agree on what the problem is, we agree on the formulation of the problem, but there is arguments perhaps about how it should be solved. And messes. In a mess situation, we know neither exactly what the problem is nor what the solution looks like. Now, AI systems of any variety, they work best when we talk about puzzles, when we both know what the problem we're solving is and also what the solution looks like. I think certainly in the next few years, we'll see agent systems that can perhaps work with problems, that can work with an agreed problem formulation and then work out and experiment to find the best solution. What I don't see happening anytime soon is for AI agent systems to be able to work with messes, where both the formulation and the solution of the problem are very much arguable. What we need there is humans, and that will be a key part. That the pilot analogy is the roles that the pilot does take, one of them is takeoff. And that's exactly what takeoff looks like in analytics projects. How can we go from some arguments and some vague conceptualizations of the problem? How can we specify that and reformulate that in a way that the AI system can actually work on it? As we know, context is everything. The prompts that we create are everything. They allow AIs to adapt to lots of different tasks, but it also makes AI agent systems very brittle, very easy to break, and it makes misunderstandings very frequent. Inasmuch as agentic AI may seem ostentatiously to be about autonomous systems, the practical reality of working with them right now is that they take an awful lot of what we might call inductive biases. Inductive biases in my world of AI and machine learning is about the design choices we make and how they influence the way that the AI thinks. In terms of agent systems that we're seeing coming through, there's a huge number of these choices that we need to make, and they are critical for whether these systems work or not. That includes us thinking about how we can program these agents via prompts to behave like analysts or operational research specialists. How can we encourage them to think and follow the methodology we would? It absolutely includes the tools that we include. What models do we make available? What analysis methods, what technologies do we give the AI agents access to? What data do we give them access to? How do we set up that network? How do we share information through it? Not only are these non-obvious choices, they're hard choices to make, they are choices that require humans to do right now, and ideally humans that can both understand something about the technology and also the business problem they are solving. That will determine what the correct, quote unquote, architecture and design choices are in this space. And again, this is a key part of taking off any project. I won't dwell too much on this final point, but another big part of it is as we go into a world where potentially most companies in an industry are using similar AI tools, how do we actually get some competitive difference here? How do we actually make our AI the best it can be? And we always live in the, thank you, we always live in a world of where garbage in, garbage out. The data will become a really critical path in making these systems work as well as they can, but also in making our profession work far better. For far too long, we have focused on data in a purely transactional sense, that we just want the data as it is, put it in a database, done. That doesn't make that data very helpful for human users, and it doesn't make it very helpful for AI tools to come and access. What we need is data that is well understood and well described by subject matter experts. We need our data systems to become more as a service that anyone can use with or without code. And that allows our data to be owned by the people who specialize in that data and analytics OR professionals who absolutely understand both the technical piece but also the business piece of what that data means. If we can describe this data well in metadata, it becomes a fantastic resource for both AI and human users. So that's the idea of taking off. The second job the pilot has, and a really critical one, it is worth noting that despite this extensive use of automation, commercial airlines pay the salaries of not one pilot, but 2 pilots in every flight. So they will pay an insurance policy largely to make sure nothing goes wrong in flight. As we give AI more and more control of our modeling, I would absolutely argue that the best companies, the companies that succeed anyway, will need to have analytics professionals working with them as that insurance policy, and really to control and supervise what's happening. Current AI solutions, they just don't work well over long time horizons. We really need them to be able to be, over a long period of time, they'll get more likely to get confused, more likely to go in the wrong way. Paradoxically, again, as much as we talk about AI as being about autonomy, they absolutely rely on human in the loop to make them work. We need analytics experts who can correct mistakes, either mistakes made by the AI or mistakes made in the initial design, who can supervise the work that's being done and critically change the flight path as being required. As we discover new things, those goals and objectives can change. We need a human in the loop to be able to make those decisions. I've got a quote here from Byram. I'm not going to read it all to you, but the argument being made in this quote is that as much as AI becomes more and more powerful, we can never substitute AI for due diligence. That is always going to be a critical thing. In our modeling world, that is when we talk about verification and validation, making sure the model is technically correct, making sure the model meets the stated need. Those steps will be critical all the way through, and it's something I think for at least the foreseeable future we will require a human to do. If the models we make are flawed, guess what the outputs are going to be. So in-flight is going to be absolutely critical. There's also a warning message in this as well. As you use AI more and more, and I'm sort of a big user myself, you can start to get an inflated confidence at how good it is. Having the ability to be cynical and push back and not just blindly trust it is an absolutely key thing. So a bit of skepticism goes all the way. To finish off my metaphor, we can think about landing. So landing the plane in this metaphor, essentially, for me, depends on 2 main things. How we can integrate these systems into the wider network of tools and decision-making automation systems. That's a significant engineering challenge, not least because these machines, I often make the joke, the best thing about modern AI is that it can work in a non-deterministic way. We don't have to give it exact instructions in programming script. We can give it vague prompts and it can work out what to do. But the worst thing about current AI systems is they work in a non-deterministic way. So from an engineering perspective, that's really challenging. We never really know what we're going to get. We can't really envision all the possible outcomes. So there's significant engineering challenges. But of course, there's significant people challenges as well. Significant need for people to take those results and bring in the human factors, think about the organizational culture, conduct experiments, do all that change management piece. And again, people who can think about both the business, about the problem situation that we're working with, and have that technical understanding, they will be critical to us. And that's the people I believe I'm talking to in this room. My last couple of points, and I'm sorry, there's not going to be a huge amount of time for questions, but we'll do what we can. Once we start to think in this way, and once we think about these wider trends, for me, I now look at the work that we've done in analytics over these years and think that we have made some pretty significant, not mistakes necessarily, that we haven't been working in the optimal way. The way I think I worked in most of my career, at least, is that I build a lot of these one-off models. I have a project, I build a model to solve that project, to answer that question. That's all the model can do. It can't do anything other than that. There is no reusability. As we move more towards AI and tools and thinking about reuse systems of this kind, we need to think a lot more about reusability. How can we design things that can be reused on other projects? We need to think about data in a different way. Rather than doing all this wonderful work on data to fit our specific project and to make our model work, instead we need to be thinking about data preparation at an organization level. How can we just have data that is more predictive, that is already engineered? How can we make sure that we've got data that is understood by humans and AI tools? And then there's the whole world of multimodality. Can we prepare our data in such a way that it is predictive in storage rather than predictive only in our models. If we can start to achieve these things and plugging in AI as we go along, we can move to a world where we no longer have these really slow, risky analytics projects, to one where a project becomes more about putting together established working things together to solve our new module problems. Which leads me to my last sign-off point. We are in a world where AI has come in and AI can do an average level job on lots of different things, which is fine if you're an established person like myself or Paul or whoever else who've got many years of experience in this field. AI generally doesn't work as well as we do independently. Of course, we can work better by using it, but that's another story. What that does mean, though, is someone starting off their career like you are, you may be in a situation where actually AI's level is even potentially slightly higher than your base level. You need to learn some things to get yourself up into that expert tier. Will businesses justify hiring new starters, giving them the time to build up those skills when AI already exists? What I'd argue to you is that you just need to have a mentality change instead. Rather than going in expecting to be a junior, taking instruction from seniors, be the senior yourself. The junior can be these AI tools around you. You can use these tools, instruct them in the right way, give them the right resources, supervise them in the right way, and you can make yourself more powerful and able to do more things quicker than ever. Very last slide, best of times, worst of times. As much as there is real risks in the jobs market coming from AI and a lot of threats to humanity in general in many ways, in some ways it's a fantastic opportunity for you all. Business is going to have a genuine need for people who can blend these technology skills, the AI skills, alongside that analytics expertise, that analytics experience, that human decision-making factor. The industry seniors don't have that advantage. They haven't worked in that space as well. AI is new for them as well. So in as much as it's very difficult to break into a market without that experience, if you can show both your ability to build and learn and consolidate your experiences, as well as a familiarity with this new wave of technology, it can in fact be a great opportunity for you. That was all I wanted to say. Now, I'm aware a few technical quirks were on the way. I apologise that the slides weren't available. I think we could probably make them available later, can't we, Mandy? But hopefully, hopefully that was still useful in some way. I have burnt through my time, but there might be time. I don't know. Do we want to see if there's any questions or?
Yeah, feel free.
Okay, so if there's one or so questions, I'm more than happy to pitch in on them. You're also more than welcome to contact me independently of this. I would be very happy to have a chat with any of you, as I've got a lot of interest in this area. I'm just going to put my email address in the chat. Yeah, Q&A. So it's that classic question of, am I getting no questions because I did a really good job, or am I getting no questions because no one understood what I was talking about? I can never be entirely sure, but hopefully it's the former, not the latter. And as I say, if there is anything from this, or indeed in general, that you would like to talk more about, my email address is in the chat. I will be happy to carry on the conversation.
Well, assuming that's possibly a no then, Michael.
I think that's it. Yeah. I think I didn't generate any questions, but thank you all for listening either way, and hopefully some of the things we've covered are useful for you as you build your careers. Or just in the nick of time, do you think AI will be able to automate the mathematic formulation anytime soon? The mathematics of that, absolutely. I think it already can. The real difference between that and full automation of our careers is that actually formulating the mathematical solution correctly is not just a technical challenge, it's a challenge of understanding what the business actually needs as well. And that's not so easily done. That's not easily done without a human moderator, essentially, without a human translating the problem in such a way that the AI can formulate the maths. Chatbots themselves are not great at this, but other AI tools are. So I think that absolutely has happened in many ways. But that doesn't mean we're not needed. That's my slide covered. I think in some ways we're needed more than ever.
Sure, everybody will be very pleased to hear that.
Indeed, yeah. I had to come with a good news story. And thanks for trying to help me out with that, Mandy. I appreciate challenging things happen. but hopefully it was an okay product in the end.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks all. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, Michael. Take care. So our next speaker is Mohammed from Microlize. So again, if you've got any questions, if you can pop them in the Q&A box, please.
Thanks, Mandy. Intro.
No problem.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yeah. And my slide is trying to go for the presentation mode. Is the slide okay?
Yeah, all good. Thank you.
Good. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Mandy, for the invitation. What I'm going to do today is more about my journey in the last few years after graduation to now, and it's more of my insights, my learning over time, rather than going through the technical skill that you may want to see how they're applicable in industry. I'm the member of the R Society since 2007. I was just trying to look at today to see how long is it. It's almost 20 now, a couple of years short. And I've seen great value in over all these years to get where I am after graduation and during my study. I work in the different roles, and I will quickly go through them shortly. And then I'm going to talk mainly about some of the skills that I think that is critical for any graduate in the analytical domain, mainly in the OR side and data science and business analytics to have when you want to join the industry. And with some takeaway at the end just to summarize it, try to keep it 20 minutes to leave some time for the question if there is any. And if you want to go through my journey back 2012, and I finished my PhD, I was in academia for about 12 years. And I wasn't sure still what I want to do. I'm very comfortable staying in that university and will be in academia or just move to I call it more real world. Because I wasn't sure and said, okay, I have two things. I have two offers at that time. Okay, three offers actually. I could do a postdoc to stay in academia and move to France. The other one is to work the business as a scientist and move to industry and do something in between and help me to make a decision what I want to do. And the scheme which is already still is being offered that sort of job is a knowledge transfer partnership. It's basically you're working on a project sponsored by a business enterprise, supported by university and partially funded by the government. And I did it for a couple of years, and then at the end of the 2 years, I wasn't sure still what exactly I wanted to do, and I started negotiating with the place that I was doing the KTP with them, and also apply for other jobs, and got the job to move to a postdoc, which is more research associate sort of job. You more working on the practical problem for the industry, but you're still a postdoc. I decided to stay in academia. Stay in industry after that in 2012. And over time, I moved from the technical role to more leadership role. And back 2017, it was a time that data science was a buzzword, and we're doing more stuff on the operational research and data science in the business, and established a team back that time and grow the team to 9 team members in operational research and data science. And I've been in that leadership role for a few years and done a sort of a break in my leadership role and moved to a big enterprise international business and work on a principal advanced analytics lead, which was more individual contributor. I worked for a while and it wasn't what I was looking for. I wasn't happy to work on a project for years. It was similar to PhD, but it's more industry driven. I moved back to the more architecture role, designing solutions for in data science and OR, and then currently back to more leadership role, and which is very different to 7 years ago, 8 years ago when we started that team. And we explain more why I see that there are differences. I can manage to change this slide. Oh, yeah. So if you start with this slide, sometimes in in industry, we are solving the problem that doesn't exist. So, and the sweet spot for us is, what is it possible to do, what our customer wants, and what it needs to be done, which is not necessarily all of them are aligned, and finding that sweet spot for us is a challenge. And it may explain later on with some examples. In the morning, I was looking at the trends in the Google and to see some of the buzzwords. So start with OR, then move to data science, then business analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence. As you see, the blue line is showing the OR, the trends, at least for the search that's you're usually doing in Google. In the last 20 years, it's a steady trend that you see. Business analytics in the last few years is trendier than OR, mainly because of the availability of the data. Data is available. We can do more stuff with data than 20 years ago. And as you expect, AI and machine learning is more buzzword and quite on top of the trend. Then, if you want to move, I pick 4 core skills for me. I start when I was talking with Mandy, I came up with the title for talk. I call it transferable. And as I started preparing a slide, I said they're not really transferable. Just we are translating this the skill that you're learning in academia to work in industry. I pick 4 of them. That these are to me the top 4. And I'm saying it's mainly based on the war export experience. Probably I've done, I don't know, 200 interviews in the last 12, 13 years, and talking with graduates, all sorts of graduates with different backgrounds. And I found that if these are the 4 critical ones, if one of them is missing, it's very difficult to offer that graduate job in the data science, in operational research, in AI domain. One is start with problem structuring. And usually you are working on complex problem in academia. You are having all the dependency in your model. But then when you move to industry, it's more about the messy business request that initially is not even clear what the problem is. And they are not looking for the best solution. We are always looking for a practical solution, a quick solution, a feasible solution. And it is the more problem structuring skill help you to apply it, to translate it in the business world. Move to the next one is more analytical skill, but under constraint. What I mean is in academia, we are designing model, we are doing simulation, we are doing mathematical modeling, and we do loads of comprehensive validation and sensitivity analysis. When you move to more real world, everything these days, everything is data-driven solution. That the solution is based on the data, not based on the assumption that you're making. So not necessarily all the data is there. You have always limited data. And that's why you can't do all the validation that you're interested. And the most important one, we do all the analytics. At the end, we want to show the impact. If there is no impact, there is no point to design the solution. The third one is, as you expect, is how good you are in dealing with data and writing code. So I'm sure all of you done some sort of programming. I'm sure you done play with the data for different projects that you have. You have a spreadsheet, a CSV file with tens of thousands rows of data. But in real life, we are talking about millions and billions of rows of data. And we are not talking about writing code in Python. It's great, but is it scalable? Can we deploy it? Can we maintain it? Can we support it? How can you move from a notebook to a program that can be deployed? So these are one that you might want to think about it, how it is possible. And the last one, top 4 for me, is more communication, storytelling. You become, when you graduated on your degree or your master's or PhD, you are good in technical writing, and you're probably doing great in justifying your methodology and your solution and the results. But in industry, usually we are presenting and writing for non-technical people, and very limited number of people are interested in what the methodology and the model that you design. They're more interested about the impact, about the revenue, about the cost saving, rather than I use that model and I test it and the performance and SX. They're not interested in that one, more interested in the impact. Just to summarize, that bridging gap between academia and the industry is we are moving from theory and precision to actionable decision, which is speaking the language of the business. You're talking about in academia in more deep analytical model. In the industry, you're talking about practical and scalable solution. So you're talking about insight, not about algorithm. In academia, novelty is critical, is important, validation is important, but in industry, everything about can we measure it? Can we measure the outcome? Can we measure the impact? So that's why we are keen to do more and more prototype and iterate it quickly rather than working for the best solution for a long time. You're usually individual research at university in academia, but industry most of the time is more about the collaboration, team collaboration across different roles. What I was trying to say is not about, the goal is not leave academia behind and forget about all the skill and technical skill in academia. It's more about how can we translate it to our strengths to be employable and successful in industry. A couple of examples. I'll call it, if you realize, my coloring is for academia is more about the blue sky research, and in production is more green. If I translate academia to research and I translate industry to production, that was a good example a few years back. The director of AI at Tesla was saying that all my PhD, most of the time I'm spending on designing model and algorithm, but when I moved to Tesla, most of the time I'm spending time to sorting out the data, playing with the data, which is very true in all sorts of industry. It's the trend. And if you look at these old visualization, as you see the ML model, I call it was related to ML, but it's the same for the OR. It's the same for data science. That the intelligent, the model in the software industry, in industry, is the smallest part in the whole system that we have to design. So the challenge is not usually the model. The challenge is all the moving part around the model and how can we connect them and link them to get the value and to show the impact. Just to summarize a few, try to separate some of the main differences between the industry and academia. If you look at the requirement, usually you get a fixed requirement. It's the scope, is what you want to do. But in real life, you are dealing with many stakeholders, and the requirement, as one of the first skill I said, the problem structuring, usually structuring the problem, defining the scope and the outcome, and is the challenging part, which is usually easy in academia because you can easily make assumption, you can easily and define what you want to do. Computationally, we are talking about a high performance model, but we are in industry, we are talking about the low latency rather than the high performance. Data, you have a fixed set of data. Everything is static in real life, everything constantly shifting and changing. You're talking about the dynamic environments. Fairness, we care about it. I know it's important, but it's not the most important part. Most of the machine learning work that we do in academia, but in real life, it is critical. It's critical. And the same as how reusable is the model and the work that we do, and how explainable is the work that we do to non-technical people. And if move to the current team that we have at Microlize, we have a team of 10 people. I try to separate to show that the link between these domains that we are working. We have a team which is working on the operational research side of the business. We have a team working on data science, which is more crunching the data numbers. It's more about the experiments, about the analysis, about designing model. And we have the third team, which is I call it AI engineering in our team, which is the one that, the model looks promising. How can I deploy it? How can I support it? How can I maintain it? How can I monitor the performance, which is moved to the AI engineering? We link these three teams. We join them as a one team in a business, but the work that we do is not only our team. We have to work with product management. These are the one coming with the problem to us. It's the problem that customer has, how can you solve it? They come usually with the problem and what they're expecting to be the outcome, not necessarily in between what's going to happen. We're working with the software engineering in terms of deploying our solution in the production environment. We work with the platform team to give us the platform for doing the experiment for deployment, and working with data engineering, which is because we are data consumer, we are not managing the data, we are consuming the data, we have to work with them. As you see, the individual projects that you can do on your own in industry, in academia, in industry, a group of people should work together to make it happen. And I pick a few examples. I was trying to pick a more technical method or approach that you're using and how it's translated for us in our solution that we are offering. Because I forgot to mention, I work in a business that we are providing, call it black box, for commercial vehicle that to track it, to track the vehicle, to look at the driving behavior, to look at what's been delivered, to plan it, to when you deliver it, to sign on a glass. If, for example, if you order from something from Tesco for home delivery, it's the one that solution we provide to them in terms of planning execution. And it's the same for many of the retailers in the UK. We have about, I think, 750,000 connection today. And one of the challenges to see how can I tell me how my braking system is on my trailer, and instead of spending 4 days a year to do the test. And basically, you're talking, if you simplify, if you're looking at the regression, can I look at the data over time? Can I predict the performance? It's all a regression that the model, which is based on regression, is translated to green, amber, red in real life for the customer to use it. The other example, if you are, how can I predict the failure of different components of the vehicle? If, for example, if the battery, you start your car and the battery is flat, you may take a taxi or rent a car. But if you imagine if it's 4-ton trucks and going to make it costs them a couple of £1,000 for that battery failure that day. If you look at the construction machine, it's significantly more than a couple of thousand for them because the digger is not available today now to do the job. And if I can predict the failure of different components, for instance, battery, it could be a huge cost saving for them in terms of the maintenance. And it's more about the pattern mining. It's more about the clustering. Can I look at the behavior before and after failure of the battery, and can I predict it? And the prediction is, again, similar to the braking performance. It's more about, is it the performance is green, or is it amber, or is it red? Do I need to worry about it or not? Yeah, the other one of the solutions that we offer, if I'm sure you're familiar with the vehicle routing problem. Basically, you have a depot, you want to make a delivery to different location and come back to a depot. And for our customer, for instance, if I pick up a retailer, let's call it Asda, that Asda, you have a distribution center, you want to deliver to all of your stores. But each truck can deliver to a limited number of stores because the capacity each store has a different delivery time. So each driver has a different shift pattern. How can I plan thousands of the couple of thousands trucks to make delivery to my stores? For us, it's translated to a pickup and delivery routing and scheduling problem that the solution look like that. You have a timeline that they show the different deliveries, collection, break, all the restriction that you have, and on the map you can see all the routes that. And not necessarily all the solution is advanced analytics and you need AI and ML. Sometimes it's just you need to visualize it. And usually the starting point, I want to visualize my data to see how it look like. The right-hand side shows the traffic pattern of HGVs in London before and after the first lockdown we had during the COVID time. And the Transport for London, they want to say, driving behavior and change. There is no traffic now, that the trucks can take any sort of route that they want. How quickly they adapt to this change? And it's just they wanted to visually to see the differences. And just conscious of time, if I want to pick a few immediate action that you may want to think about, based on what I said, you may want to reframe your CV. For every project that you work on, think about the business outcome. To translate your technical skill to more business capability rather than just put a technical term. Build your translation muscle, I call it, is try to, if you do doing the project, you have to write a summary. Try to write 2 versions. One is for academic, one executive version. It's really helpful for your interview when someone asks you, what was that project about? Try to practice the 30-second pitch that you worked on that project for 2 months. Tell me in 30 seconds what it was about. And you will be surprised at how many graduates can't give that 30-second or even 2 minutes or 5-minute pitch that you ask them. And the last one is start learning the business term. If you're interested in industry, start following the publication, learn the technical term, and help you in terms of moving to that industry. And the final 2 slides, final thoughts. OR is more than numbers. OR is about making change happen. Try to be T-shaped. When I say T-shape, is you're good at one thing. So OR is data science, or is a subdomain of the OR and data science, but try to widen your knowledge across the business and technical. Don't be one person who is good in one thing and only one thing. Real world data is messy, as I said. Business problems are fuzzy. Stay curious. Always, tools are always changing, and these days tools are changing even more frequent and quicker than before, but critical thinking doesn't. And these are the skills that you learn in academia in a short period of time. In industry, it's not easy to learn, and it takes longer. And seek mentor. It's really help you in that journey. I believe that our society offered a mentorship program. And finally, be good in programming and playing with data. Change your optimization mindset. Everything is time boxed. We are looking for fast, explainable solution. Get dirty data experience. I haven't seen many graduates play with real data when I apply for the job, and it's very different to what the data that we get in academia for project. Learn SQL if you are keen on working with data. Network strategy, attend meetups. The OR Society offer many of these opportunities to you. Do an internship to see do you really like industry or not, and what sort of industry you like. And the final one, understand good enough engineering. Working solution today and perfect solution never is what we have in usually industry. That's it. It was okay. Any question? I can't see Mandy the chat. I have to stop moving to that one to see any question on the chat or anyone would like to ask the question. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Bye.
Much appreciated. Thank you. So our next speaker is Prateep, and he's from Anyvan. Over to you, Prateep.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think we are continuing the from the previous talks. So Michael and Mohammed. So I think they were very interesting talks, especially Michael one on also related to this talk, which is in the new era of large language models. So how can we be successful as a OR analyst? So what skills are more important than before? How we need to be more prepared for the future? How this is evolving, and then what are my learnings so over the years in this area. Okay, first about myself. I'm Pradeep Aita. I'm currently head of decision sciences at Anyvan London. I have total 15 years of experience as a OR practitioner after my master's from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, India. I worked. I was lucky to work. I'm so far lucky to work with multiple companies. Like a lot of startups. So where I was the first employee in a startup, and some of the big companies like Amazon. So where I worked for 7 years in Luxembourg. So I got to work with a lot of people from masters, business schools, or PhDs. Now I'm going to take you through few learnings. So I have had so far. And with the LLMs, how that changed. So I could see that shift very clearly, because as I've been working for some time, so I have seen before LLMs how we used to work and how my team used to work compared to now, how we are working and how efficient we become, and what skills we basically stress on to become successful. When I say to become successful, where so you could progress in your career, what exactly we consider when it comes to promotions or career growth. So these details I'll go through. Okay, so first, quick things about my current company, Anyvan. Anyvan is a UK-based marketplace for house moves or furniture moves. So we are an asset-free company, and it's a two-sided marketplace similar to Uber. So where we connect with customers with the man with van. So we are just a technology company, just a platform. So that actually we can clearly see that there are a lot of operations research-related problems within our company. I manage a team of 6 operations research scientists at the moment. So I used to manage a team in at Amazon also, but working on slightly different problems. So I don't go more into details of these things, but we'll go straight into how things changed or evolved with large language models. So before large language models, let us say 3 years before or something like that, before ChatGPT was launched. So we have very clear classification. My team used to have a mix of junior scientists, senior scientists, and leader managers. And I used to manage these people. But mostly when we see the job roles, so junior scientists are more like executors. So we'll be on the data, make sure that data is correct. So we'll be debugging the models, or we will be junior scientists will be running the simulations for stakeholders, answering mostly what if questions. So we have senior scientists who are mostly answering how to questions. That means, okay, the project is finalized. So then how do we implement it? What type of formulations? How do we formulate? So reading the publications, so making sure that business requirements are met and tuning the models. So of course, there is a huge overlap, depends on the company you are in or team you are in. But this is the high level differentiation between junior and senior scientists. And we have the leader managers. So we'll be answering mostly what to questions like what exactly need to be done to change in the metrics or KPIs. So aligning with executives, so driving the strategic decisions. So that is how the classification is. Now with LLMs, so there is a huge shift so happened in the last 2 years. So how we work as a scientist, we moved from execution to ideation. For example, most of in my early career 10 years back, or even some of my teammates who started in few years back, so used to spend a huge amount of time manually coding, so with the help of Stack Overflow. I'm not sure how many of you used Stack Overflow to find some tips to solve problems. So it's not fun. So we used to spend huge amount of time. For example, if we are stuck somewhere, so it is not easy to get away without really doing lot of trial and errors, and we don't know, maybe a small mistake happens in the code or something like that. Currently this is not required, right? Like we just do the conservational prototyping. It's been a while when since I opened Stack Overflow or tried to search things on Google for to solve something, or go to the documentation of the tool and see how exactly need to be done. So now we are more about thinking how to solve the problem than how to implement the solution. So this is a huge shift, as I mentioned. And also days are spent on bug fixing or data wrangling or code debugging or something like that, so or writing documents. So all those things are happening within hours. So we are previously we used to run models for stakeholders because it's very difficult to run in their own systems, or they don't know how to run. So currently it's a matter of hours or days. We can quickly launch a self-service, easy to deploy apps, so like Streamlit or something like that. So we can just hand over this to the stakeholders and free from non-value add task for the scientist. So we are more answering how to questions than like basically no need to run simulations or something to support stakeholders. This huge shift is almost kind of removing the need of the data scientist. So the junior data scientist work, whatever juniors used to do, are being done by the ChatGPT. They are the juniors. This is exactly what Michael was also mentioning. So when you enter into the industry, so mostly we enter into that junior scientist role, but the expectation now shifted to more behave like a senior scientist. So where you would be more doing formulations or answering how to questions, so going towards the business requirements, so tame these chat gpt models or models whatever we are working on, writing the right prompts, so validate what is coming out and tune the models instead of spending time to write documents or look into the debugging or something like that. So this is a huge shift. That means the moment you enter into industry, the bar of expectations completely changed. There used to be junior is not there anymore, and you should start to behave or basically act as a senior scientist, so which is nothing to be scared of, because it's simple than we thought, because that was the cycle before, so where we have to have somebody to do that, and mostly the juniors used to take that burden, and seniors used to focus on it. But it is as that is not there. So then the moment you come in, your training and other things will be focused on the senior scientist. So it is just about what I'm going to talk today is what is the mindset you need to have when you enter into the industry, so which would help you progress quickly to the next levels. So the mindset is, yes, I know that all the universities, definitely in the UK, are very good universities. You should have very good technical skills when you are coming out of it. You could use definitely ChatGPT and other LLMs to fill the gaps wherever there are. But these are the things so which don't directly come through that. So, for example, it's again similar to the things Michael summarized, but this is just my other way of looking at it. So one should have product mindset. Basically, seniors and leads are expected to have that working backward mindset, more like an architects. And then we can use LLMs to go into the individual modules and then get them work. But then humans are still needed to architect things. So understand the business and architect them. And then second one is the commercial mindset. It's very, very important to understand what drives business value instead of only thinking about, so how can I make a better model. So that is also needed, but that comes later. First is whatever I am doing, so is it adding business value? We'll double click on this point. So the third important thing is the stakeholder management. So it was learned over on the job previously. So as we didn't really have that time, so as you're almost coming at a senior level in the starting, you need to know how to influence without authority. I will also double click on this one. Okay, so product mindset. Think like a builder, not like an analyst. Okay, so you need to understand the boundaries of the business. That is, when I say boundaries of the business, what are the assumptions in business? Like what exactly are the how this business work? When I say boundaries of the business, for example, if you come to my company and we are a marketplace, so if you come and say that why can't we have your own vehicles, that is not the business model at all. So when you first understand how this business work, why this is working this way, so you can start to add value. That means the discussions you are going to have with your superiors are more productive, so for them to come back to you, so instead of keep explaining what exactly we are trying to do, what is our vision, what is our mission. So it's not trivial as we thought. It's not about reading the mission and vision statements. It's about looking around and understand, so why this business exists, how this business wants to flourish or stay competitive over time. Then similar to that, more importantly, we also need to understand the technical boundaries. So what do you mean by technical boundaries? Every company unless you are joining as a startup, which is you are the first employee or something, so would have their legacy stack. So they would have their legacy code, legacy system, legacy product, legacy software engineers. So basically, which technologies we use and why we use. So for example, if company is mostly using Java, and then you are a Python developer, so you need to understand what is at stake if you use Python versus Java. I'm not saying we need to completely change, you need to learn Java. So but it's all about why the architecture is like that. Why, what caused it? Is it the legacy reason that we didn't want to change it, or is it any other reason we want to maintain it that way? So maybe sometimes some application needs 24/7 support where only engineers can do that, so not data scientists. That means that time they would ask you to write your code in Java so that they can quickly see what's happening there. So sometimes so the applications are not mission critical. That means even if they fail, so within 2-3 hours we can solve. So in that case, a data scientist need not to be on support on call, but still you can have your models in Python. For example, in my company, so we just write our models in Python and then use whatever techniques needed as and when needed. So it's all about you understand the technical boundaries and business boundaries, and stay very curious, as mentioned by Mohammed or Michael. This is super important. So don't um, um, wait for somebody else to come and tell you. So keep thinking in your mind why exactly it is done this way, what caused it to be happen like that, why they have chosen this um, um, architecture. Every company has the lunch and learn sessions, or some other demos or something else. So even if it is not super duper relevant to you, if it is technical, so where possible, once you finish your, of course, task, so try to attend them. So try to see how people are building things, so why they are building that way. Try to understand the background of that, not only thinking okay they have done that way, but then why they have done that way, why did they choose the technology, so why did they make that decision, why did they design the product like that, why did they choose that model versus the other model. So these are important questions one should ask. So when you attend these presentations, not about just listening to that and saying that okay it's successful, but then the every product or every model has a backstory. So that is the great learning than the successful one, because we need to know how many times that person failed, how many iterations they have done before they say that okay they have implemented something in production. So if you know only the successful one, you wouldn't know or learn so what you cannot do. It's all about not only knowing what method to use, what method not to use. To me, in my personal experience, so that actually makes you different, because if you know that if you're using some standard method, but if you know already that that doesn't work, or the chances of that working there is slim, so it's better not to spend time on that. So this is the judgment. So judgment under uncertainty is a great skill to have, irrespective of the level you are in. Then commercial mindset. So every business will have KPIs. So most of the times juniors will were getting were having some time to learn about it, and they were used to given tasks. So but then that is not true anymore. So the moment you enter, try to look around and understand what are the key KPIs business is interested in. So what is the company KPI, how the unit economics of the company work, which is not very difficult many times. So it will be a simple math, especially when you look at the high level, what's coming in, what's going out. So how much money are we making, or are we in profits or losses. So what is the path forward for success. So if you know that one, then every time connect what you are working with the key KPI of the company. So as long as you could connect, you can that makes sense. That is exactly, that means you're adding value to the company, that growth and other things will come automatically. But if you can't connect your work to the company's KPI, that means there is something wrong. You need to question yourself or ask your manager, why are you doing that? So this is super important. So try to connect with finance people or your manager, stay curious, ask questions, talk to skip level or the super skip level, understand what exactly is bothering them or what exactly their plans are for the future. Always link your work to the operational outcome or real financial outcomes. This is another mindset important. Then the stakeholder management. With all these things, it's super important. So you are connected to your stakeholders. Put yourself into the stakeholder shoes. Understand why they are asking what they are asking. So why you are doing this work, who uses it. So this is the customer obsession. Customer need not to be your end customer outside your company. Your customer could be your internal team member, so just from other team who are going to use your models. Most of the times, the data scientist customers are internal team members. So which is actually a great thing in my opinion, because if it is external customer, you won't get true feedback that easily. So we need to really run some surveys, and you don't know how accurate their surveys will be all. But internal customers, you can always go back and ask them what exactly, why exactly they are doing, and how exactly they want it, why they want it. So that actually gives immediate feedback to you to change your course of action. And another important thing is the influencing without authority. So what do you mean by that? Now, if you see all the news you might be reading about Amazon or other companies, so companies are becoming flat structure. So there won't be any managers of managers and all those things. So it will be mostly individual contributors. So we'll be using these LLMs to get their work done. And most maybe a big team of 6-7 people would have one manager and something like that. So when you don't have direct reports, so but still you need to get things done. So that is why influencing without authority is a powerful skill to have. So there is a lot of books and videos you can find online. So I would strongly recommend. So keep on track of them, and then understand and learn those skills. So which is with curiosity, empathy, and clarity, you can earn trust and drive change. So without this skill, so in real life, we really struggle. So as I mentioned, the flat organizations are the future, and everybody, whether you are already working or you are going to join, so this is going to be very useful. Then when it comes to having that mindset is super important. But when it comes to other skills, so structuring ambiguous problems. So this is where LLMs yet are not very good. So when you clearly give a prompt, so they will give you right output. But then there is a lot of uncertainty in the business. Every business is very ambiguous. So it takes a lot of time for somebody to frame the right question. So this is an important skill. So as I mentioned, juniors were not involved before, but now that is not anymore. So when you are saying how to do and what to do, these to answer these questions, what to do, it's very easy. Okay, you need to improve the, you need to reduce the cost to cost there, or procurement cost, or whatever transport cost or something like that. But then how do you formulate this problem? Like, what are your business? What is your business? What is already been done? What needs to be done? So how much time you have to solve this problem? So everything is ambiguous. How do you extract clarity out of the ambiguity is super important skill to have. And domain and business understanding, as I mentioned about the commercial mindset that comes there. And knowing your subject, judgment under uncertainty is a crucial skill that comes normally with experience. For example, when you work for 10 years more or X number of years, so you have gone through some hands-on challenges or failures. So when I say failures, you tried something, you didn't work, and then you tried something else. Then you learned that, okay, that don't work in these cases. So then your judgment so will get better and better over time. But now we are not in that era. So most of the times, so maybe when you ask a ChatGPT or whatnot, so it might give already a question, answer the question, because it might read all the internet and it will learn from the failures, and then it only gives the success stories. That means you are not learning the background of that decision making. When you don't know that, it's not like every time you have LLMs for your help. So you need to be attending meetings, and you need to be guiding or giving suggestions to make decisions to the management. So when you know your subject, so you would be the go-to person for that. But if you are completely depending on something else, then you can't make judgments. So this is where it is not very straightforward now to get better at judgment. But this is where you can attend lot of sessions, so read lot of things, so what people have done. So don't completely rely only on LLMs. So try to do your due diligence, so why it exactly, or ask LLM how actually, what is the thought process it used to suggest you that, instead of directly using the final suggestion given by the LLM. So that is crucial skill. So without that, so you would be easily replaced with an LLM. So I think we need to be irreplaceable. So these things are timeless skills to have. Okay, I think we have maybe few minutes for questions. So again, as I mentioned, so I'm just repeating what Michael has said. So more from the commercial point of view, that yes, so the technical execution is democratized, and juniors or entry level people are not required anymore to do the technical execution. So it frees up from mechanical tasks, and you already started thinking at next level, which is the decision making. So whenever you have you earn trust, and then structure problems, ambiguous problems, and then make right judgments and guide artificial intelligence towards the better answers, so then you would be irreplaceable for the foreseeable future. Yeah, thank you. So hopefully you learned something. Yeah, be curious, and keep asking a lot of questions, not only to me when you join the companies.
Thank you, Prateek. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Thanks everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.